okay? You were dependent on someone else to make them for you. So you had to interact with other member of your group, human group, to get these things for you. So when you want to eat, do you grow all your own food? Or do you buy the foods from?
I get your point. Like, for example, the heart needs the brains to work together.
No, I'm saying human beings were social animals according to evolutionary understanding, biology, right? So we live in societies. Okay, that's my point. Whenever you live in societies, it is important not to harm others and to live in a way mutually, in a harmonious way, with respect, with understanding, with tolerance, with goodwill, and all these things that we are just talking about. Now, the things I mentioned is, not all of them can be intuitively applied, because some people's intuitions may have been clouded by certain judgment and bias. Yep.
Yeah, it depends on what they've learned.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I do.
That means to live coherently, justly in a society, we need certain rules and regulations. For example, here in Speaker's Corner, do you think if someone wants to walk naked, they can just go about walk naked and they'll just be okay?
No, obviously there's rules.
There are rules against it, because this will be a public order crime, public disorder, okay? Yeah. Because it will affect some people. Yeah. So it doesn't work. What if people are having sexual intimate relationship in public here? Also, same thing. Yeah. There are rules against it. What if some people want to say, okay, let me take your bag by force? There'll be rules against it, because this is yours. Taking it away is violating your right. So to protect someone's right, their honor, their dignity, and many other things, society upholds certain agreeable rules to make it function properly. Do you agree?
Yes, but...
Do you agree?
Yeah, I do.
So is it necessary, or is it not necessary? Society have rules.
It's necessary for the majority believe.
No, to society to function, in a way, society to function, it's necessary to have rules. Otherwise, anyone can do anything. They can come and murder you just like that. And yeah. So it's actually, for us, it's necessary. In this day of life, we will say necessary. In the past, even when people weren't technologically advanced, still people had tribal societies. They still had rules. There was a chief, tribal chief, who everyone listened to, and their community will listen to and abide by the rules by this chief of the tribe. Yeah. So, if we understand the necessity of rules and regulations for our own benefit, then you'd appreciate if a creator had created us and want us to also function in a way that is harmonious, that is mutually tolerant, that is safeguarding each other's rights. The creator can save us from going into trial and error and give us certain guidance to save us from this path and say, if you conduct yourself this way, for example, don't cheat, don't rape, don't murder, don't lie, okay? Don't oppress. You will say, yeah, makes sense. So this is what the creator gives rules and regulations to conduct our societal well-being so that we can live. So when you say organized religion with laws, it's not necessarily something that you'd go against. It's your perception of certain religion and certain rules that are applying now which you may disagree with. That is where the objection may come from.
I think the issue I find with it is like, if you don't agree with certain rules, like in the Quran, Hadith, or in the Bible, you can't change it.
Yeah, but that's why we have to go back before the rules. Are we convinced there is a creator? Number one. Are we convinced this rules comes from that creator? Yeah, because to talk about the rules which people claim, the people who follow those rules to be divine, you need to talk about first whether there is a divine creator.
That's the difficult.
That's not difficult, as we've explained so far. Okay. Maybe we can try to make it simple and see whether it helps you in any way, right? So we talked about how we have not created our own self. We have not created the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets. We haven't done that. Neither have we created or put the laws of nature, laws of physics in this world. We haven't. So we need to ask, where did the laws of physics come from in our nature? Where is its origin? And how is the laws of physics applied in the physical world? Because if you have a law, imagine I write a mathematical equation. Do you think that equation in the paper can apply itself in the real world?
No,
it's not conscious.
But that can be like replicated. It's not.
If I have a law, if I say, for example, if this then that, a law, for example, some kind of equation, that itself on a piece of paper, it just remains on a piece of paper. It doesn't have its own power and authority and will to implement the law in real life. Yeah, it's just a piece of paper with certain symbols. It doesn't know that it exists. We have placed as human beings certain symbols and made into equation. Okay? So when we describe certain physical laws in this universe, how does it apply this law in practical terms? You cannot explain this unless you really understand there has to be an applicator, someone who applies these laws within this universe. And that applicator of these rules and laws has to be someone who is conscious and with agency and will. Without using the will to enforce this law is not going to be applied. So when we talk about there is an agency who applies these rules, who created these rules, brought about these rules, what are we talking about? We are talking about the originator of this cosmos, this universe. That is the logical, coherent inference that we are making by understanding our world. In our world that we live in, there are some physical rules and laws, okay? You can see clearly what we know by gravity, something falls. It doesn't just stay or go up, right? Something, the earth is attracting, pulling towards it. And you've heard this is called gravity. There are other laws of electromagnetism, okay? Magnets, you've seen magnets. Why does it attract or repel to an opposites? You know?
I don't know, like...
Yeah, so because of there are specific rules governing this. It's there. So a magnet, the way it is, it will pull. Yeah. So there are forces in operation which are controlled by certain rule book, we can call it, without a rule giver, without an intelligence behind it, someone or something that has ability or power and will, then this will not in place. Like the rules will not be applied. The rules will be like concept only in concept. They won't be actually be applicable. So if I make a rule on a piece of paper that magnets should pull, and then I have a metallic object, now it's not going to apply that rule. I mean, how do I make a piece of paper, these symbols and equations, transfer the applicability to that piece of metal, and then it keeps attracting other metallic objects? It will never happen from this. So this rules to apply, you need an applicator. I'm saying you need someone who will be applying this rule. So that's why, Carlos, if we were to really use our faculty of intellect that is provided to us, we would make this inference, make that conclusion. There is a creator behind it, just like when you see a painting, you would say, I have not seen the painter, but there is a painter behind it, because that painting cannot be explained unless there is a painter who painted it, because it's so orderly, so complex and harmonious, so precise in its you cannot just simply expect this to happen by chance and by nothingness. Just like, for example, this microphone, right? Anything that you can see, even your shoes, just to come in this form with the memory foam, with your size 7 or size 8, this you cannot expect it to happen just like that. Because there are things that we can expect that can happen by chance, okay? This happens in everyday life, even though there's no such thing as a chance, but we can say, without really going to infer an intelligence behind, you can say, these patterns can emerge, okay? But we're not talking about these patterns only. We're talking about systematically so complex and so harmonious, and it is demonstrating a design work in there. For example, have you sometimes cut yourself and blood's coming out?
It's,
Okay, yeah, blood's coming out? Did you stop yourself from bleeding or something happened?
It's body works and it coagulates.
So you have a mechanism in your body in which whenever it sees a leak,
Kills the bad bacteria or
whenever it sees a leak, there are within it, okay, components that will come, whether it's platelets, fibrinogen, various other components. They'll come together, form a mesh, and they'll form a clot so that you don't die to death, right? You don't bleed to death. Not from here, but some certain veins, if you were to bleed continuously like this, you will die. We'll be drained of our blood, and that blood will not have supplying oxygen to our brain, and then we'll have starvation and we'll have brain death and so on. So these mechanisms that is in there is something that it's happening, and yet you don't even realize yourself. There are many people today, instead of accepting that this has been designed by a designer, they say it just happens by a process called evolution. I'm sure you've heard about it.
Yeah, obviously, I know there's a gap in evolution. I don't 100% believe in evolution as well. I know I'm agnostic, and I don't believe all that connection.
So as you can see, perhaps from your own studies, you've realized evolution, the mechanism that is proposed, it is not coherent. Okay.
But I do believe some type of evolution could happen with bacteria. They call it abiogenesis.
No, bacteria, this microevolution, you can call it some kind of adaptation, because within the makeup of your own particular species of your body, okay, a bacteria, human beings, in the program of your DNA, in your genes, for example, you as a human being, if you go now, for example, to a very hot country with a lot of sun, what's going to happen to your skin?
Obviously,
you're going to get darkened. Right. Melanin is going to come and so on. This is what happens. Because there's something that will make you adapt. Because the program is there in your body where you will start adapting. Okay? Likewise, there is a limit, we say, in how much you can adapt. For example, now you go to a country and the only way you can travel from one place to another is like flying over from one rock to another rock. Regardless how many times you flap your wings, you're not going to adapt and grow wings. It's not going to happen. Okay? Some people think it can happen. Some people in the past used to think, that giraffe eventually had its long leg because it needed to reach the top to get the leaves. You've probably heard of this, Lamarckism. Okay? So what we're saying is there is a species boundary. Okay? A bacteria still remains a bacteria. A dog, doesn't matter how many times you breed, it doesn't become an elephant.
Oh yeah, I understand, but the thing is, it can, like I said, I don't 100% believe there's a lack of evidence for that.
When people artificially try to breed a tiger with a lion, they get a liger, it becomes sterile. It doesn't propagate its gene and leaves the offspring, because there's a species boundary where that's it. You cannot go and continue with this new genetic makeup like that. Okay? People try to interbreed, like horses and what else, to get donkeys and horses, mules and something like this, they get things like this, with similar kind of species, and they interbreed, and they get a third in between, but that becomes sterile. There's so many examples like this. So there's a limit to how much a species can change into. So we say this boundary is placed by the Creator. Okay? Who sets this boundary? Nature doesn't have consciousness, so nature cannot set a limit to how much it goes or not.
Can I just say, what about the appendix?
The appendix?
Why is the appendix?
Very interesting question. People in the past, the same people who believed, let me give you a little bit of story, then we'll come back to the appendix, remember me. When in Europe, Christianity was in full force. Christianity meant Catholicism, Catholicism meant papacism or papal authorities. So people had to believe in that. But as time progressed, people were a bit more inquisitive, they're more inquiring. They wanted to know what was going on around the world and so on. If you heard of Galileo? No, Copernicus? Okay. Galileo, for example, he was under house arrest because of his views, okay? In terms of whether it's a geocentrism or not and so on like this, right? Because the Catholic Christianity at that time didn't want for them to come up with ideas that goes against their scripture. Okay? So people with inquiring minds, they found now an obstacle of their inquiring mind, of their progress, of their minds and their ability to think and reason and to progress and to develop. Becomes an obstacle. They're saying that they're suppressing our intellectual thoughts. So this happened, and you could see this, the Europe went from this phase to phase of reason, okay, where rationality became the arbiter of everything rather than scripture. And that changed eventually to scientific empiricism, where empirical means scientific experimentation, okay, becomes the only source of acceptable knowledge and facts and reality. Okay. So what happened when they wanted to establish as a community and have a voice and continue their work, okay, they had to somehow fight against the Catholic Church. So they needed a movement, and that movement needed to be stronger. And in this way, they were looking for alternative ideas to creationism, because they Christians believe God is the creator. That's why everything is like this, all species and everything. So you had independently, you have in UK, Charles Darwin came along with this theory that there is, if you look at similarities, they may have evolved from something, an earlier ancestor there's a common ancestors between them. So when this theory came, they said, now we know how species are there. We don't need a creator. Natural world with certain mechanism, they called it what? Fit for the environment, survival for the fittest. Yeah, one of the things. We're talking about the old model of evolution, Darwinian evolution. So they came up with this idea, and they said, okay, so because of that, we need to demonstrate like what evolution has done and what's the leftover of evolution. So they came up with ideas of appendix, thymus, various other things that you will see. Just give me 1 second, excuse me. 1 second. Can you continue?
Yeah. So we are talking about this design in nature. So
it's about related to the appendix.
Appendix. So the argument is that the people earlier did not know that what purpose appendix serves. Now people are saying that acts as a bacteria hub. I know a little bit of it because
Sorry. It was I had to take this call from home. My kid, so I don't know exactly what it is. Anyways, so they wanted to show somehow through this mechanism, it just happened, and because it's a blind process, evolution is a blind process. There's no agency, intelligence behind it. So it happens, and by all this through random mutations, something develops a good trait, and then that good trait is passed on and they survive better and so on. So that means there are in between, which we can see some kind of evidence of the leftovers of this process. They said, okay, at point, the appendix was used for something else before, and now it's not. Surprisingly, people still today believe the appendix doesn't have any function. So they labeled it as called a vestigial organ. Now, well, not now, even decades ago, scientists have said appendix has so many different functions. Not only through the lymphocytes that it has do, but various other things it do, okay? So if you go to a Scientific American website, okay, I'll show you very quickly because I may have that thing, about the appendix. It's surprising still today, people somehow think appendix doesn't have any function when it's been debunked by the scientists themselves. Okay, so this is scientificamerican.com, a popular science magazine, okay? New Scientist was another one. I used to subscribe to New Scientist during my student years. I learned so many things about this world. It was very good. Now, let's go back. What is the function of the human appendix? Did it once have a purpose that has been since lost? Lauren G. Martin, professor of physiology at Oklahoma State University, replies. So it's not Tom, Dick and Harry replying. And it's not published in somewhere like a creationist journal. It's in Scientific American, popular science magazine, okay? Educating the people who have questions like that. For years, the appendix was credited with very little physiological function. We know now, however, that the appendix serves an important role in the fetus and in young adults. Endocrine cells appears. So these are, okay, this is the development in the fetus. Let me go to the adults. Here. Among adult humans, the appendix is now thought to be involved primarily in immunofunctions. Lymphoid tissue begins to accumulate in the appendix shortly after birth and reaches a peak between the second and third decades of life, decreasing rapidly thereafter and practically disappearing after the age of 60. During the early years of development, however, the appendix has been shown to function as a lymphoid organ, assisting with maturation of B lymphocytes, one variety of white blood cells. You know about blood cells? Red blood cells, white blood cells? Yeah. And in the production of the class of antibodies known as immunoglobulin A, IgA antibodies. Researchers have also shown that the appendix is involved in the production of molecules that help to direct the movement of lymphocytes to various other locations in the body. In this context, the function of the appendix appears to be to expose white blood cells, to the wide variety of antigens or foreign substances present in the gastrointestinal tract. Thus, the appendix probably helps to suppress potentially destructive humoral blood and lympho-borne antibody responses while promoting local immunity. The appendix, like the tiny structures called Peyer's patches in the other areas of gastrointestinal tract, your tummy inside, takes up antigens from the contents of the intestines and reacts to these contents. This local immune system plays a vital role in the physiological immunoresponse and in the control of food, drug, microbial, and viral antigens. And it continues. I just gave you a response by a scientist, expert in the field of physiology, because he is someone who is what? A professor of physiology. Physiology is a subject of how the body functions and how it works, things work within your body. Anatomy is like a structural things. Like when people study anatomy, they say, okay, how many muscles are there? What are the muscles that flow? What are they flow? Physiology is how things operate between themselves, how they interact by different chemicals and things like this. Right person to answer the question. So it is sad, unfortunately, the evolutionists still think appendix has no function. So what we know, during the earlier phases, people had a long list of vestigial organs. Okay, over 100, and then eventually became lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser. How and why? Because more and more we study the human body, we realize they actually have functions. Now, similarly, there were people who used to think there are certain things in our DNA, certain portion in our DNA, which had no function, and they even labeled it junk DNA. Can you believe it? They called it junk DNA because they thought it has no function. Yeah. Now, through the advancement of genetics, we realize these junk are not junk. They have various functions. And junk is getting less and less and less because we're learning more and more about their functions. So it is really very, what's this word? Sad state of affairs when people, because of their, methodological naturalistic bias, they don't want to believe in a creator and an originator or a designer. They want to call these things happen like this, and that's why there's junk and non-junk there. It's very sad. When more and more with the advancements of science and technology and development, we realize that this universe could not be a product of blind watchmaker when there is no watchmaker and is blind, right? Like Richard Dawkins and other scientists was trying to make us believe. So as we realize, Carlos, because you said you're agnostic, meaning you're still not sure whether there's evidence to convince yourself, but the evidence is there in front of us. The evidence is there in front of us. What we have discussed so far is where from science, from biology, from physics, from astrophysics, we've given you reasons which makes us to make inference that there is a directing force which is intelligent, with the ability to choose, has been operational behind all of this. In the absence of this agency, you cannot explain this universe coherently. All the scientists will say as a cop-out, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. That's a cop-out. Imagine you say, who made this t-shirt? we don't know. Does that mean no one made it?
Well, like I said earlier,
No, if somebody says, I ask you, who made this T-shirt? And you say you don't know. Now, does that mean no one made it? Just because you say you don't know?
there's no proof to disprove if
when
someone made it. Or
when somebody says, I don't know, I ask this question, who made this T-shirt, beautiful T-shirt? And you say, I don't know. Now, does that mean I don't know means no one made it?
Well, it's the way I see it. No, it means we don't. The way I see it, it means we can't prove if someone or something made it.
Yeah. What it shows, at least, we do not have. When someone says I don't know, means we don't know what made it, but there is an explanation which is coherent that somebody did make it, rather than it coming into just like that. Do you think from as you understand? Okay, Carlos. Tell me openly, have you seen who made this? Have you seen?
Obviously, no.
Good. So when I ask you who made this T-shirt, and you say I don't know, which is probably the truthful answer.
Yeah.
Unless you've seen the labels.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But in your mind, do you accept that there's someone who made it?
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. So when scientists say we don't know who made this universe, we as human beings endowed with reason, critical thinking, we know there is someone or something behind this who originated this universe. You might not know who or what that is, but there certainly has to be someone behind it. We as Muslims, do you know what even Muslim, you'll be surprised to know this thought process. Do you know what Muslim means?
Submitting to
Yes.
Allah.
Someone who submits to the one and only creator, originator. So our state of being is of submission. That we think, okay, who made this, who made that, X this, no one made it. But eventually we come to a realization, we might not know, but there definitely is someone who made it. So we submit ourselves to that realization that there is an originator who made this. That state of submission is actually something reasonable and decent thing to do, rather than denying, saying no one made this. Like certain atheists will say, no one made this universe.
Well,
they are positive atheists.
Yeah,
they will say,
obviously,
no one made this T-shirt. You will say, that is not a reasonable stance to take. So, as human beings, your agnosticism will no longer be there on the existence of the originator of this universe, because you are actually sure and convinced there has to be, it's by necessity, there has to be a necessary being that has brought all of this into existence. As to what is that necessary being is question number 2. But the first question, we already know the answer. There has to be. There has to be a maker. There has to be a maker.
Always make something.
If something is made, something comes into existence, then something must have brought it into existence, because it couldn't have brought it into existence by itself. Like, for example, if something doesn't exist, at one point it didn't exist, can it then bring it into existence when it was nothing?
No.
No, because it was not in existence in the first place, correct?
Yeah. There's always an existence.
Right. So that means something that is non-existent could not have brought it into existence. So what can bring it into existence is something that already has existence.
Yeah.
So the universe that is in existence must be brought into existence by something that exists.
Yes, I agree with that. But
Yes, that existence, that existence, Carlos, is what we call the originator of this universe. We're not calling it God, we're calling it the originator. Make sense? Because the universe was originated by...
You could call it an originator,
Yeah. You see, I'm not putting a label there, but it makes sense to call it some existence that originated this universe.
Yeah.
Make sense? Good. Now, that existence that originated this universe, what does it, on a minimum level, possess or have to originate this universe? The basic minimum.
A cause, a reason for it to exist, maybe.
Okay, a reason for bringing to existence. Good. For this, let's call this originator A in English, right? So A originated our universe. What does A have to possess or have to bring about this universe? The basic thing that it must have,
These
absolute minimum.
like certain elements, what's able to create life or planets or something.
Ability and power.
Yeah.
Without, if it didn't have any ability or power, can it do anything?
Yeah, it wouldn't be able to.
Right. So this A must possess power or ability. The universe shows so much complexity and order within the complexity.
Yeah.
It's not all chaotic. Do you agree?
Well,
Do you see the sun jumping around and the earth floating around,
no,
or they follow a
there's
particular?
lot of planets.
There's an order, right?
I don't think it's.
When you see the earth rotating, does it sometimes rotate the other way, go up and down,
No.
jump around, dance around? It doesn't.
Don't think
So it's following a particular order. That order that's been set there, to make it happen like this, you require some kind of intelligence behind it.
If you mean intelligence, like something with a mind, like.
Okay, I'll give you an example. You have a factory, and you have a source of power, a generator that produces electricity. Okay? Electricity, we know it's not conscious. Can this source of power in this generator make an iPhone here,
No.
a MacBook there?
No, you need elements to make it. Different
No.
elements.
Even if you had the plastics, the glass, the silica, whatever, metals, right? You had this on your factory, and you have a power generator. Can this power generator, possessing electricity, assemble all these things by itself?
No, you obviously need a team to do it. You need like a.
Power generator itself cannot assemble that thing. What it requires is self-awareness, so that it can, as an agency, say, I want to assemble this together in this order. So there is self-awareness or conscious being alive or being aware of its own existence, and also having knowledge to put this together in certain order. And it must possess also the will, like say you said, the reason, will to bring it about. Because even if it had everything, didn't have a will, it can't do anything. Like if I don't have the will to move, I can't move. Look, I want to make a step, one step forward. I have to will it, correct? Unless somebody pushes me. So if I don't will my leg to go forward, it will never go. Like, imagine, some people have some problems with their neurocognitive function.
Well,
Okay,
I mean, I've
they
got
can't.
epilepsy, so
Have you heard of paralysis?
Yeah. Like
What
sleep paralysis.
What happens if someone's paralyzed? Can they move their?
No, they can't. No.
Even if they want to, right?
No, they can't.
So they have so even if a will is applied, they can't move. So that means to make things, we know we need to have a will at least. So that agency, that originator A, has existence, self-awareness, ability, knowledge, and will. Now think about what you have now brought yourself into. You're no longer in agnosticism about the originator. You have made yourself to be making a conclusion of yourself, making a conclusion, reasonably, logically, rationally, that there is an agency, an originator, who possesses all of these qualities that we mentioned. Guess what? These are some of the attributes and qualities we say of the creator originator, which people say God, because God is a loaded term in which it means someone who is worthy of our worship, of our utmost reverence. Yeah? So when something becomes worthy of reverence, of course we will revere it. For example, if you helped me in something, I should be grateful and thankful. To give you an example, we were walking together, talking about it, had an accident. Okay? Serious damage. You took me to the hospital. I'm already unconscious. You gave me blood because there was no blood matching apart from yours to save me. You gave probably a kidney as well because I was failing in my kidneys because there was so much damage. I wake up and I see you and I realize you've done all of this out of your own goodwill.
Yeah.
Because you're a good person. Yeah. You're a compassionate, merciful, a very nice individual. Not because you wanted money or fame or anything. What would be my natural response?
I think it depends what state of mind. If you're suicidal, it'd be different.
What would be my natural response if I am in my normal self? Normal.
You'll be thankful.
I should be thankful, right? So I should be grateful for what you've done. That's my natural response.
Yeah. In that case, yeah.
Yeah. So when we say God, it's our natural response to show this thanks and gratitude, our gratitude to our Creator who's given us life and the means to sustain this life. The food, the air, the fruits, the vegetables that you eat and so on, the air that you breathe in. We are thankful for all of that. We're thankful for even being here. We're thankful for providing us with company, providing us with mates, right? We thank you for giving us the ability to understand joy and bliss. So if we were to count the blessings that have been given to us, we would not be able to finish counting them, okay? So that's why when we say this agency, this originator is worthy of our reverence, our respect, our utmost respect and reverence, we call that worship. And we say, because you are the ones who gave us this life, and we'll take it, we submit to you and we will listen to you, we will follow you, we'll be obedient to you. That is what becomes the concept of a created God. God is someone worthy of being our worship. Okay, God within capital G, not small g, but people make, celebrities gods and so on. We're not talking about that. We're talking about God as in someone who's really worthy of our worship. So you have intellectually come through a journey of appreciating that is, you're no longer an agnostic, Carlos. You are someone who's convinced intellectually that there is an originator who is self-aware, who is existing, who has knowledge, who has power and ability, who has willed and who created this or originated this universe.
I don't know. I feel like.
Where do you disagree, or where are you not fully convinced?
I agree with what you say there, but I feel like you think. I believe it's Allah.
We haven't gone to the point of what that is yet. We've only come to a point of agreeing existence and self-awareness, knowledge, power and ability, and will. We agree on that, correct?
Yeah.
This is what we call by something that we call it an originator, we call it the creator. What that created this universe. So you're no longer an agnostic, you are a theist, someone who believes in some kind of creator. But as to who or what that creator is, you're not sure about it.
In a creator, I don't believe in something with a mind. Because like I said,
the knowledge. Look, I'm not saying God has a mind. I'm saying I'm not saying the originator has a mind. I'm saying the originator is knowledgeable, all-knowing by necessity. Because
like I say, it could have been quantum fields. I'm not, like I say, I don't know.
Quantum fields are just some fields which doesn't have even self-awareness that they even exist. They can't do anything because they're only like things following a particular laws by themselves. Like electricity, for example, it will do what it's supposed to do. The flow of electrons, right? It's just there, and that's following this law. It cannot just change something to something else automatically.
That's why we discussed our laws earlier.
Yeah? So these things cannot, like a generator, which generates electricity, cannot make your iPhones and your watches and things like that. So even if you go back again, just to take away from the idea of a personal creator, it's not really going to help you in this way because it will not going to make something like us and so on. It will not be able to do anything. So the next step is having those attributes or qualities of that agent, that originator, think about it. Would this originator be itself self-existing and self-subsisting, meaning with no beginning, or would this originator itself be a product of another originator?
Well, like I say, I can't. It could be, but because I can't, and anyone else can't prove if it was what keeps going on and on eternal.
It's a possibility. It can go on and on.
Possibility, yeah.
A was created by B, B was created by C, and go on.
Exactly, yeah.
But the problem with this idea, have you heard of something called the infinite regress?
Possibly, I don't.
Okay, fine. Let me explain to you what basically it is. This infinite regress, we would say the way that we are explaining about the origination of our universe would not practically materialize if it was like that. I'll give you an analogy. Imagine someone wants to shoot a criminal on the death penalty, right? So you have a sharpshooter, they will not miss. The command needs to come, and then the criminal who deserved death penalty, for example, is executed. Okay, some people don't believe in it. This is an analogy, an example. Now, if there are infinite number of commanders to command the last person to shoot. So for example, you're the shooter. You will only shoot when you get the get-go from me. I command you, I'm your immediate line commander. I don't know what's they call, line manager, whatever, commander. And I say, shoot. I give you the order. Happens. Now imagine I also have someone, a commander or line manager for me, right? I have to get the command from someone from Brother Sarwar here. And he has to have a command from here. And it goes on infinity. Would you ever be able to shoot?
Not until the chief or whoever.
There is no ending.
Yeah.
It goes on and on.
It's difficult to
No, if it goes on and on and on, you will never get the command. Because before he gets the command from him, he has to get the command one behind him, and so on. So before you get the command, I have to get the command to command you, shoot. So I have to wait for him to tell me. He has to wait for him to tell him. And it goes on and on because it's never ending. Because that command will not reach him or you will not be able to shoot. This is the problem of this infinite regress in our understanding when we're explaining about the origination of our universe. Since our universe already exists, that means the shot took place. If the shot took place, it wasn't everlasting with no end. It wasn't going on and on. It was at one point, it had a beginning where there was no prior. That's why it was able to follow through. So the universe didn't have and could not have infinite series of creators or originators in the past. Does it make sense? Because if it did, the universe would never come into existence. The fact that the universe is here means it was never always infinite chain of causes or creators for our universe.
Say that again. Oh, it's just my hand. I joke to people about lava blood, but I only need my glove really.
Yeah, that's right. So Carlos, does it make sense?
I understand, I can't say it, analogy.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think for me, I'm guessing like a Christian stubborn, like with sticking to their religion. I'm like that with...
No, I can understand it's difficult to let go of what you believe in, but we want you to reason with yourself and ask yourself, if there were infinite number of creators who had to create each other first, then the universe will never be created, just like the example I've given you. Yeah? So that means reason alone demonstrates that our universe did not have infinite amount of creators. At one point there was a creator prior to which there was no other creator. And we are talking about that creator, the first creator. That's what we're saying. All the intermediaries are useless, there's nothing there.
Oh no, I'm gonna find it later. I've got too much fucking stuff. Fucking thing.
Are you feeling cold? I've got one of my jackets for you to wear.
Like I said, I was just trying to get my glove, but I've got food and drinks there.
Okay, no problem. So Carlos, you see, think about this deeply, contemplate, because when you reason and try to make sense out of this, there will be various occasions of biases coming into play because you are accustomed to, you've made yourself to have a position like this.
Exactly.
And you have to fight, you have to resist this urge to simply saying, I'm not going to use reason, I'm not going to accept it. You have to resist this urge of simply being unreasonable, okay? You need to ask yourself, I need to be reasonable. Wherever the truth is and leads to, I will accept it. So this is preparing yourself to be sincere and truthful. And saying, look, wherever the truth is, I will accept it. Even if you realize, he is your brother, the lost brother, and your mom and dad tells you do a genetic test, be ready for the truth, he's your brother, for example, right? You can't just simply deny it, I don't like him because I didn't know him. You're not knowing something doesn't mean that you don't accept it. Likewise, once you know the truth is there, knocking on your door, the reason affirms that. You have to accept it.
I don't think I'm going to be convinced.
No, I'm not asking, I'm not saying I'm convincing you at all. I'm saying you have to do the convincing yourself based on what we have discussed with reason, with science.
I have looked at bits in the Quran and Hadith and...
But these things will come later. Look, Quran, Hadith, Bible, whatever. We can discuss about this later. But first you have to be affirming and convincing that there is a creator, originator, if that helps you to use this word, because creator has a very loaded connotation, originator of our universe.
Yeah.
The Quran uses one of the names of our creator as an originator. Al-Mubdi'. He's Badi'us samawati wal ard, right? So yes, the originator of our cosmos, of our reality, and deal with that. If there is an originator possessing all of this and originated me, next question you should ask, has this originator communicated? Has this originator communicated?
The thing is, I feel like it's like people think Allah or Christians Yahweh or what's the other Jews, I've forgotten the name of it. It's like God's on Skype or something like that, sort of like communicating with everyone. So for me, I find it. Really
you'll be surprised. The guidance from this creator, originator, tells us the different modes of communication from this creator. The originator tells us in how many different ways he communicates to people. Okay? One of the most infallible way, which is an objective way of assessing and understanding the communication, is by raising from among human beings prophets and messengers as spokespersons and giving them a book or a guidance with proof and evidence. Then people can accept it from them, rather than simply saying, imagine I came and tell you, the creator has told me to tell you to accept him. You'd say, the creator told you, he didn't tell me.
What convinced you to believe in Allah?
No. If I told you, the creator has told me personally, last night, to tell you, you'd say, he hasn't told me, you don't believe it. Yeah. That's why this kind of personal communication, people will be skeptic about it. Yeah? People are skeptic about it.
Myself.
Yeah. So that's why we're saying there are other ways of communication, which when looked at it objectively, when you look at it with evidence, you will say, yep, this as evidence for its claim that it contains the communication from the creator. Okay? It removes a lot of biases. That's what we're saying. So when we just talk about the Quran and you read the Quran, you will see how the creator talks to you, and you will be someone asking, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. If you didn't know those basic fundamental principles that we talked about, then it becomes a little bit difficult. Because you will automatically thinking, oh, God maybe as a God with someone sitting there on a throne with white beard and grey hair. You know, some people make this. Yeah. That's the problem. So we have to remove all of these things. Start with a clean slate. There is an originator, and then see different communication like the Quran. What did it say? The Quran says, for example, just to clear this matter, there is no similarity like him whatsoever. There's none like unto him. So, ask any Muslim, what is God like? How does he look like? Every Muslim will tell you, God is unlike anything. Unlike anything. That means we don't have an image that we say, oh, God is like this or like that. Because God tells us He's unlike anything that you can even imagine.
I don't want to interrupt, but I want to go around. I want to go around, but
Carlos,
to you, or,
nice speaking to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Before you go something, let me say, he's trying to communicate with you to understand something.
Yeah.
We're human beings. Go intellect to use it. Try to engage what he's saying. I know I could see, you're not engaging, but you're trying something else. I could see. Always when someone tries to communicate, it's not going to get any benefit things from you. Try to understand what he's trying to say. That's the most.
It's okay.
Yeah,
you've heard, you'll remember, reflect on it.
Chronic street from, so it's like,
Carlos, reflect on it. When we see you again next time, take the opportunity to speak to us or any Muslims here to take one step further and say, okay, I've discussed this, I thought about it, and I have some questions, and we talk further. Okay?
Yeah.
You take care. Pleasure speaking to you. Okay. Thank you.
Whose camera is this?